Hello, my friends, and welcome back. People wonder how could the government, balance the budget and not just balance, but be profitable. If you put any of the big businessmen today in charge of the government, they would be making at least double what the entire America pays in taxes, including all the tariffs they get from other nations, all the profit that the federal government makes from all its taxations and everything. There's entrepreneurs today that could double, they could make double of all that without all of this taxation. America has over $2 trillion worth, and that's just on the surface, without and just the land itself. There's so much minerals. There's so much to do. You understand? They could instead of giving free protections to other country, they could have them. We'll give you protection, but you need to pay for it. You understand? NATO is the biggest scam out there. America, it's basically a Democrat army. That's all it is. And sometimes the Democrats have the American army, and when they don't have the but they always have the NATO army, because the whole NATO is all controlled by Democrats that hate this country. There is the government, if they wanted to, they could greatly change the whole atmosphere in America. That there's so much they could do. Make a gap that we can make rules that we could never charge more than 30% federal tax, and that's every type of tax that they take from a citizen. Charge and they should really aim for 10%. You understand? And then they could go to, and then people from other countries that want to do business there, their tax is bigger than our tax. You understand? We're the citizens here. We should be the ones that are being taken care of more. And there's just so much that can be done. Healthcare. Make their own hospitals, and only someone that's a citizen. You need to show a passport to get in. It's such simple things that they could do, and everything could be changed. It's shocking what can be done, and they have to limit healthcare to only physical illnesses, not when it comes to the brain. If people want to sponsor and help them, that's fine, of course. But the government, you can't make a government which has an endless checkbook. You can't give them an expense that there's no way to calculate it. It's not that there isn't such a thing as mental health, but you can't make a government have to do something like that it's incalculable. You understand? A person has a broken hand, they sprain their foot, they need a heart transplant. These are things that are measurable, that we could see, are you frauding, are you not? When you understand? When it comes to these other things, there's it's too lucid. It's too lucid, and people could so easily take advantage of it. There's so America could be a paradise. It's very limit federal tax. They could take taxes off a house. They already have tax when you buy something, right? There's so that already paid. That they should make it illegal to charge a tax on a house. The state could charge the state they charge taxes for when you buy and purchase things. You understand? But they don't have to, and in that way, it all works out, because a rich person who's buying more stuff, he's paying more, And a person that's buying very minimal, he's paying less. Everything works out, but everybody is contributing. You understand? Everybody is contributing, uh, and and of course it has to be, you can't, you can't just start making these high sales taxes. You understand that that's of course improper, but you have to be creative. The reason why rich people don't want to get involved with the government, they don't want to get involved with the cities and becoming mayors and this and that, is because they could work, they could work hard to bring it up, but then you have some stupid Democrat that's saying he's going to take all the rich people's money, he's going to give everything away, and then, and they lose everything. So what's the point of building if everything could be lost, right? Mandami was left with $9 billion. It disappeared. He's asking for money. He's saying he has to raise taxes. What happened to all that money? You create a business that you don't own, and someone could just, every 2 to 4 years, everything could be stolen, everything could be taken. Who in their right mind would get involved with that? And that's just the surface. When you get into it, it's a jungle, just horrible people there. They're nice on camera, but I just saw how Kevin O'Leary was treated on, I think it was CNN over there, and he's like, "You women are crazy, right? You're talking to psychopaths." But people have to know that in the end of the day, the real people you're gonna have to figure out how to split your time, understand? Because we need real people in there to change the country around. All these losers, they're the ones that, they're the ones that go into government. Only losers go into government. I was always, I was thinking, you have these people that they go into the mafia, and that's to them, a person that wants to be a mafia guy, what do they think? Or a mafia girl, whatever it may be. What do they think? We have to join the mafia. And I was just thinking, the most of the politicians, there are good ones, and basically very few good Democrat ones, many more good Republican ones. Many, you understand? But Republicans also have a bunch of losers there as well. And, and when you look at their tactics, they're basically working like the mafia. They're stealing constantly. They lie constantly. Someone tries to go against them, they petrify them, throw them in jail if they can, throw away the key. And because they're the government, they get away with it. So I was just thinking, if a person really wants to be part of a mafia person, the best place to go is the government. And then actually he could do a better job than these psychopath mafia people, you understand? He could actually do a better job. He could actually do, because even though mafias are tough, but they actually want the good of their country, of their town. However, the people that are in the government, these high-level people that are controlling everything, they don't care. They have their own gated communities. The cops work for them, and so they just get their place protected. The snow gets shoveled away, the garbage gets taken, even though everybody else gets nothing. You understand? So a mafia person wouldn't do that. He might be tough, but he would make sure that everybody's garbage is taken away. That the snow is not just pushed to the side, but it's taken up. There's a machine that picks it up and puts it in the back. You understand? And just holds it away. So it's, So there's anyways, the government is anyways a mafia. That's what it became. Unfortunately, now we have Trump in. He's the one fear thing. You know. So I was thinking besides trying to get good people like Trump to come in, and maybe have an ideology of giving 10% of their time, or 20% or possibly 50% of their time to improve their town, their city, their state, their country. But also, let's try to get, because it's anyways being run by mafias. Let's people that, because they get away with everything. Look at the Clintons. They're called to Congress and they don't come, and Congress is stepping over, or stepping over their toes to try to get them in and not offend them, and lets them get away instead of just dragging their asses inside. They get away with everything. This stealing in Minnesota and California and most of the Democratic place, the $9 billion that disappeared when Mamdani came in. All these things, they get away with it. Why? Because they're part of the government. So wouldn't it be better to have people in there? So, it's a mafia. They're stealing people's money. Nothing happens to them. What I see, that's the mafia people that are actually mafia people, they should change careers. The government is the most best place, and you get away with everything. You understand? And there's something powerful when you actually get into a position of power and you actually want to do good. There's something powerful that you actually become a good person. But when someone that isn't their decision, that's not what they're trying to do. You understand? They're a snowflake. Things look the way it looks. So of course, this is all allegedly. I'm not telling people to do this or telling people what is. This is all my personal opinion. But I just think any perfect person that's has that wants to be a mafia person, you should just. They don't realize that there's another venue that nothing happens to. It's called the government. Well, look how hard they have to work just to get rid of a government job. It's not easy, right? You have to prove. You can't just fire them. You understand? It's such nonsense, And then I see all these people complaining about how the government is being ripped off, by other countries. So first of all, if someone is giving out free money, why shouldn't someone take it? You understand? Why shouldn't they take it? You're stupid enough to give away free money. That's one thing. Second thing, if you're so stupid that you could be easily fooled into agreeing to do something, to give me money, understand? People are going to take that, especially countries, they're going to take that. You have to, you have to have the best represent your country, not a bunch of psychopaths and stupid people. And people are not interested in hearing there's this problem and you do nothing about it. Things have to happen instantly, rapidly. Democrats instantly going after, people didn't do nothing. They were standing by the Capitol. People were praying. Grandmothers were praying. And all of a sudden, they disappear. And after all, you're looking and looking, and finally you found out that they're deep in some federal prison, with like a mattress that's this thin with bugs on it. Now, of course, they're wrong. They're doing things in the wrong way. But why don't you do this for good? Just get rid of the problem. Just change it. You understand? And you go from easiest to hardest. You understand? Things that you have the power to change are things that you need. you need Congress, you need approval, this and that. So, but what you could do. People are sick and tired of us constantly hearing there's this issue, that issue, and they don't do anything about it. We would rather you said nothing and you actually do something. All these, just completely stop MGOs, just stop it. Then all of this funding, most of the money that's brought in taxes are being given to terrorists, to people that are non-American citizens. Very little is being used for this country itself. I'm actually very in favor of giving the army. Now it went up to $1 trillion. I'm very in favor. Why? Because at least the money that goes to the army, we know it's going to an American place. All the other trillions that are somehow disappearing, we don't know where it's going. We don't know, but at least when it goes to the army, we know where it's going. So I'm very in favor. People are complaining that they put the budget more. I'm very in favor. At least we know that our money we know the army is a good cause. You don't have an army, you don't have a country. You understand? I'm very for it. We should build, a few more U.S. carriers with laser beams. Absolutely, I'm all for with sonic beams on sonic that shoots out and knocks planes and drones out of the sky, fries them. I'm all for it. Let's make a few more U.S. carriers. Sounds like a good idea to me. That a person makes more money and therefore gives more taxes. People are saying zero taxes. I mean, I understand there could come a point when you could have zero taxes, that the country is profitable enough. But at the same time, I do understand taxes. It's something that makes sense. And I also do, I understand both arguments to have a flat tax and then you have a tax that goes up. But meaning, so let's say you make 20,000. So there's a 10% tax. I'm not, whatever the figures are, I believe that's what it is. There's a 10% federal tax. And then as you make more, it goes up. You understand? It makes, it makes sense to have a federal tax. It makes sense. Now, constitutional wise, if it's not constitutional, then obviously you have to figure out how to do that. You understand? So people are saying tariffs, and but tariffs just not gonna, the cost that it's nearly not enough. It's nearly not enough, and it makes sense, federal tax, and it also makes sense to say a flat federal tax or it comes up, but to say that in any scenario it should go, that in the worst of times it should go more than 30%, that's wrong. It should be tried to be kept at 10%, and then there's like you start at 2, and then if you make over $500,000, then it goes up to 10%. And in times of war, it could be moved up to 15, up max in the worst scenario, 30%, but never more federally from all the ways that they take money. Not from tariffs that they charge other countries, talking about what taxes that they're charging American citizens. It should never go more than 30. But they should try always to keep it between 10 and 20. Preferably 10. And other people that want to do business in America should be paying, at least it should start at 15-20 on what they taxes on what they make in America. You understand? Now you could say there is a method maybe there that you want to just keep it to import taxes, but there is a I do see that, someone from a different country wants to make money off our citizens in America. They need to be taxed. You understand? They should be taxed more than a citizen in America. Their taxes should be higher because me, as being a citizen of America, I have the right. The government should be treating me better, not a foreign citizen better. Right now, it's better to be a citizen of a different country and make money in America, and because you pay less in taxes. It should be the opposite. That if you're an American citizen, you pay less in taxes. And you have the biggest badass fleet out there. You understand? Things have to change. And Trump is very correct when he says when things are going good, they raise the they raise the interest, and when things are bad, then it drops. When things are going good, that should be a reason why now the number should go down. You understand? That should be a reason. And in bad situations, you could also go down. You understand? In like really bad situations, but it shouldn't be that things are just getting raised. It would make more sense that when things are going good, it gets raised. When things are going bad, when things are going good, the interest goes down. When things are going bad, it goes up. That's the way it should be. Reversing it to try to reversing it is just punishing when things go good, and then more bad things happen. You understand? So President Trump is right on the money over there. If a city wants to house the poor, this and that, but that should not be the responsibility of the federal government, and they should give no money to that. That's not their responsibility. Their responsibility is the safety of the country. Their responsibility is to make sure is alliances with other countries, peace, tranquility, profitability. When another country tries to raise tariffs and this and that, they should be trying to get the best deals out there for Americans. Instead, it's the opposite. They just take bribes, and they're just trying to get rich off of us, off of our money being taken away. I can't get over it. Taxes today for, the beginning tax, it starts at 10-20%. That's how it just begins in the beginning levels, and I'm just completely shocked at that. And then you go to the higher levels. Once you hit $1 million, then you're giving 50% away. I don't understand how people have that's why there's so many poor people, because when they hear that, they're like, why should I even try? 50% gets taken away from me. And then you buy a house, and it should become a law in America that there's no property tax. I buy a piece of property, and then I'm being taxed. If the government is already the state is already taking taxes on every purchase I make, then they should take taxes on property, and when a person gets older, they have to worry about taxes on property, even when they're younger. I bought a piece of land, you understand? It's, I just feel the pain of the people, and people think that it's just impossible. And I think that the answer to this is a Jewish idea, but you give 10% of your time for other people. And in this case, I think we need a tremendous amount of 10% of people's times, of successful people, for their states, for their cities, for America. They need to start giving. They need to start, setting aside time every day, becoming the mayors while being entrepreneurs. That's what needs to be done. And it's not going to be easy, but you're a businessman, you understand? Or a businesswoman, whatever it may be. When you say businessman, it's unilateral, it means both. So they need to start, they need to start getting involved. And, Republicans who, it's a different world. Democrats, it's like a hopeless, I don't know what they used to be 100 years ago, you understand? But today, Democrats, it's a hopeless world over there. But Republicans, there's fertile ground, but you have to plant the seeds. We need to see every Republican state just, not because they have to, even though they could figure out a loophole how it isn't wrong to do property tax, they need to do it. They need to just do it. Property tax 0. Someone out of the country wants to make money in my state. They have to. There's a tax on that. There's a tariff. There's a tax. You understand? Not to make a nexus that another American from a different state has to pay. No. Someone who's not from America has nexus. You understand? Everybody else, you're American. You're taxed up to here. It's almost like you don't exist. People, the IRS coming after people. It has to be that the IRS, unless the fraud was above X amount, they can't arrest you. You understand? They could garnish your wages. There's other things, but they can't arrest you. The jails are filled with people. I heard one time they did like 24,000 people just because of taxes. You understand? These aren't violent people. You understand? And they could just throw you in jail for 5 cents, $1, $5. These things can't be allowed. They can't be allowed. And when it comes to people that make a lot of money, millions and millions or billions, they can make a mistake easier than someone who's only making $1 million a year. So for them, for their mistake that they should have to go to jail should be higher, because when you're talking about billions, it's easy to make $1 million mistake, taxes wise. You understand? I just see, people just give up ever even starting to work. They just say, I'll just live off all the social health cares and all the social plans, all that. Why? They just don't want to begin with taxes. One little mistake and a person could end up in a cell, in a federal cell. I don't even want to say what happens in federal prisons. You don't even have to listen to me. You can just Google up what happens there. Just horrendous what's happening over there. Someone goes to federal prison, or any prison at that, unless they were there for just a few moments and then they're taken out, it only has a negative effect. Only has a negative effect. If someone goes to prison, they just watch movies all day, but work out, solitude, whatever. Have them do something. Make them work hard. Have them do something. Work is like the elixir of life. It teaches a person how to become an adult, how to deal with people, because it's not going, so you have to change. It teaches a person so much. just the work itself, you start feeling good about yourself, that you're something. You got to put them to work. There's a lot, I want to, talk about, and, how things could be run better, how these different plans, this and that, but I just gave a little inklings, a little taste, so people could start thinking for themselves and we could begin a process of healing. You understand? And we could realize that there is something that we could do, but we have to give 10% of our time to fixing the government. And that's state government, federal government. We have to be willing to give 10% of our time. If you're really generous, 20%, and if you're going over and beyond, 50%. I hear of these rich people that they give, there's a certain club of rich people that they give 50% of what they make to charity. That's amazing, but I think there's something even more important than that, and that is 50% of your time to make things better. Right now, usually it's all these losers that go for these government jobs because they know they don't have to do anything, there's no accountability, they get away with everything. It's just horrible. And literally the regular people, and especially the successful people, they have to know that they're gonna have to give a good percent of their time, 10-20%. If a person is just going all in, 50%, don't do more than 50, you understand, but max 50. Let's say you're the mayor, you become the mayor, so if you're the mayor, you have to give 35, 40, 50% of your time, that, and then you say, nope, now I go to business, I'm making money, because it's not good that you just do the mayor and then financially you're not successful. You understand? You need to be successful. So financially, you always have to give 50% of the time. You understand? But the other 50 you do according to the position that you have, and how much you want to allocate to that, but it should be a border beginning point of 10%, and I think that this 10% of your time, I think, is, in a way, used properly, is even more important than 10% of what you make. 10% of what you make is a great deed, is a great good deed. It's a big mitzvah, but when it comes to 10% of your time, that's actually changing lives for people. Instead of them living another day, you're actually, which is it's a good deed. Someone would starve from starvation, you gave them food. Someone would die from a sickness, you cured them. It's an amazing thing. But giving 10% of your time, you could transform someone's life. It's a different animal. It's a different scenario. So we need to realize that. And if it was a choice between 10% of your money and 10% of your time, I would say go for the 10% of your time. That is more important. as great as a good deed as 10% of your money is, 10% of your time is even greater. Even greater. And why am I saying this? Because from my calculation of what I understand, this is the only way things will change. I mentioned a few things, you understand? Of things that need to change, you understand? But the only way that it's gonna happen is if the people that have good common sense, that are successful, and this is for everybody, because everybody has a part that they could do. But a successful person, he could actually become the mayor. You understand? He could become part of the Senate. There are things that he could do that the regular person would, struggle to even get in the door of that. And and people need to realize that if there's a lot of Republican movie stars, not so there's a lot of them, and they could easily, they're movie stars, people kiss up to them, or singers, whatever it may be, and they live in a certain town. They could say, to become there's the city person in charge of the city, the town, the state, positions in government, the president, the Senate. There's all these different things. So according to a person's abilities of where he'll do best, you understand, where he understands and he could, cause good. And sometimes you need to learn, because you're just completely not in that world. You need to take that 10% time to learn about it and see which role would you'll be able to do. And because you're so known, everybody would vote for you. And then you can't have this dragged out. All the issues just dragging you out months and months. It needs to happen right away. You come in, let's say you're the president. You come in and you say, we're making the tax, I would say, just go all the way down to, make the new mark from 0 to 30. Really, what I think is from 0 to 10 or 0 to 20, and the extra 10% or extra 20% is in dire, in times of war and dire situations, but never more than 30. You understand? But you need to do it in levels. So it's not. Sometimes you can't just do it all at once. So you say, taxes are going down. The people that pay 50 now pay 40. The people that pay 40 now they pay 30. The people that pay 30, just go down. And now people, let's say, that make $20,000, there's no tax. You understand? And that helps people that they don't have to worry about taxes to actually start being profitable enough that the taxes won't break their business. You understand? So it needs to be instant. You understand? It's not that the rich people feel it instantly when you come in, and that it somehow helps you. Prices do go down, but each person needs to feel it for themselves instantly. And a simple way to do that is to go down 5, 45, or go down by 10. Just like that. You understand? And if you just say 5%, if you say go down to 10, 20, you won't be able to succeed. That's something you're going to have to build to. You understand? But to go down 5% for each category, that you could do. That is possible. So you have to know what the end goal is and what is possible now. And there's so much good that could be done possible. But for some reason, people don't think about this. For some reason, this isn't the fight, and I just can't understand it. The first day that you become president, the first day that you're elected as mayor of the city, or the governor, immediately, wherever you can, bring it down a bit. Bring it down a bit. Let the cities should learn to adjust. The government should learn to adjust to that. Bring it down. You understand? Get rid of NGOs. Everybody has to reapply. You start off like that. Everybody has to reapply, and everything is looked into. If you're getting government funding, there needs to be cameras everywhere, and it has to be linked to a certain website, a government website, that they could view everything. Things need to move. Things need to happen. I'm just thinking. Imagine if you had a mayor or a governor that would say, I'm going to make it easy. Everybody has to go to the DMV. It could be done online. We could talk to you over online, with Zoom or whatever it may be. Things could move quicker. Now if you try to buy a vehicle in a different state, it's like, how do you make that happen? Things should be able to move. It's such nonsense the way things are set up, compared to the technology that exists today, that it's shocking. The government should have a huge surplus, and some they should just have have dead S&P 500, certain goods, stocks or ETFs, or certain cryptos, and then they should have someone trading for them. You understand? A government can get the lowest interest. Just the stock market is endless that they could make. I'm just thinking of it, and everything. They're literally doing everything in the worst way possible. The only thing that actually we see as a beauty is the army. That's the only area that we can actually look at it and be proud. And even them, for many things, they're being ripped off of. But we could look at the big boats. We could look at it. They're running. They're successful. You understand? We could have a little nachas, a little joy, a little happiness. I'm all for giving the army $1 trillion. Give them more. You understand? I'm all for it. So, so this is the aside. We have to start giving 10% of our time to make our state, to make our, depending on who you are. Sometimes it's your neighborhood, and a person with more abilities. It's your city, it's your state, it's positions in the government, it's the president. You understand? Vice president. There's all different positions, but we have to start giving 10% of our times. And it's not that people don't want to do it. Most people, they hear this like, oh, now someone actually said something that makes sense. Let's try to do that. I think this is really the Nakuda to fix America. And there's so much potential here. It's crazy. America could be making each year in profit, not because they're taxing the citizens to death. No, not because of that. But they could easily be making $30 billion a year, because there's so many different ways. There's the stock market. There's having people, if you want us to protect you, you have to pay us. There's so many ways that to make money. Of course, there's some of it that comes from taxes, but it dwarfs what could be made just without the taxes. You understand? It dwarfs that, right? So I think America, right, this past year, what they took like $2 trillion in debt, and they got like 5% of that. They should be able to turn that $2 trillion into $10 trillion just in the stock market. Just with working with people that understand how the stock market works, or building a program that buys and sells these robots, computer robots that buy and sell. Just that in and of itself. They could take out a loan and you know, make 50% profit from the, it's just, meaning from the APR. Yeah, they could make so much more money. 2 could have turned into 10 trillion. The deficit that America has, to us, and even to the biggest business people today, it's like, whoa, that's a lot. But compared to what the potential here is, it's nothing. It's nothing. America, in my opinion, is at least $500 trillion worth, not 200 and some, 500 trillion, and that's when it begins without much much complications and depth. If you really want to go deep, I think it's 100 trillion. You understand? Sorry, not 100, not 500 trillion. The next one, I don't know the next number after a trillion, quadrillion, I don't know, whatever it is. There's so much potential, but we have these lackadaisical people that are in the government, stupid people, literally stupid people, and the only way to fix this, God can make a miracle, it's true, but even if you get President Trump, he's so limited because everything is filled with Democrats. Everything is filled with stupid people. You understand? We have to start. The people that are actually with it have to stand up. They have to. We have to stand up. And we have to give 10% of our time to the government, to making things better, to literally bringing down the taxes, not just for the poor and not just for the rich, but for everybody. The next Republican candidate for president, it should be a given that he's going to bring down taxes for everybody by 5%. And if you're in a state, it should be a given that you're going to bring it down 1, 2, 3%. It should be a given. Sales tax will come down 0.5%. It should be a given. This will rejuvenate people. It'll give people hope. You will see how people will succeed, and you will be like, from just caring about them just a little bit, and not just for the rich and not just for the poor, but for everybody. Just caring a little bit, taking away the tension just a little bit. How much success there could be. How much success. And that's the lesson today. That is the lesson. 10% of your time to make your city, your state, your country, your neighborhood, to make it better. That's the lesson. That's what needs to be done. Hopefully, guys, with us doing this, we should have the blessing of God. May God bless us. May Hashem bless us, the Lord, the Almighty. May He send us blessing, and we should all be safe. And we should see things turn around in a new way that never before. In a new way never before. And this is the only way to do that. This is the only way that the true, real, successful people, that they start getting involved. They give a percent of their time to make America better. Not all of their time, 50% of the time for sure. You should never go over 50. You need to be making money. Now, let's say you're Trump, you already made your billions, and you have many kids and grandkids, and they're making money. that could be a different scenario, that now you're able to give 100% of your time. You understand? But for regular people, when they're young, you 50. Of course, you have a system. You have a balance. Okay, it's the 50 quota today. Tomorrow you could come. You understand? Just because you're the mayor, you're the governor, doesn't mean it doesn't mean that you have to give away 100% of your time. That wasn't the founding fathers' point. Their point is that successful people should come into the government and use a good portion of their time to help it, but not that because you went into the government, now you neglected your business and now everything is lost. That wasn't their intentions. You understand? They were smart people. And that shouldn't be your intention as a smart person. So I really think this is a method of success. There's a lot of hope here, especially in America, more than any other country. We have a big piece of land. There's a lot of money. We have to thank God that we have a huge army. There is so much going for us. And, we need to make it happen. We need to do it. We need to do it. I love you, and Hashem loves you more.